Hello, my name is Febrian Ruciyanti, and now I will explain about the data set that I chose. So, this is the data set that I chose. The title is Bone Marrow Transplant Children Data Set. So, basically, this data set describes pediatric patients with several hematologic diseases, and uh, the purpose of this data set is to um, identify the most important factors influencing the success or failure of the transplantation procedure. The reason why I chose this dataset is because I am interested to diseases that are related to blood, are it called hematologic diseases. As far as I know, the acute hematologic diseases can only cured by bone marrow transplant, which this procedure is not always successful. There are some factors that affect the result of these procedures. So in this data set, we will see the factors that will affect the result of this transplant, whether the recipients or the patient will uh, alive or unalive. So there are 37 attributes or features used in this data. We can see there here the features. There are the donor age. Is the donor age is below 35 or not? And there are also the recipient data and also some of the blood cells data. And here the survival status is the target that we will see in this data. The first step that I did is to importing the data. So I use some libraries here like Pandas, Seaborn, and Matplotlib. Then after that, I import the data here, and the file type is .arff. So I use the arff.load arff. Then the name of the dataset, we here we write df. Then here we print the dataset, and this is the raw dataset. We can see that in this raw dataset there are the value is still in the character form. There are B1, B0, and other character values. And to make sure all the values can be shown in the graphic, we have to change the value from this form, the character forms, into integer. So we have to use the replace function here, and I change the character into integer. Like for example, the B0, I change it into 0, and the B1 change it into 1 in integer. And after that, we can see here the values is already changed into integer form, like the recipient gender, like 1 for female and 0 is for male, and it happened to all the features. Then we have to exploring the data. First step, we can use the shape function. Here we can see the rows and the columns. There are 187 rows and 37 columns, and using columns function, we can see all the features in this data set. Then we use the D types function. Here we can see the types of all the features. For example, the recipient gender is in integer, like we can see before, the 1 and 0, and the donor age is in float types. From here we can see it's like 22.8, blah blah blah. Then for the for example, the antigen is the object type. After that, we can also use the describe function. In this function, we can see the summarize of the data set. We can see here the count, the average of the data, the standard deviation, the minimum, the maximum, and the quantile values of each features. Then using the info function, here we can see is there any null values in this data, and we can see here that the CD3D, CD34, there are only 182 non-null values. So we can see that there are 5 null values here, and it also happened with the ANC recovery. Sorry, the recipient body mass. This is there are only 185 non-null value. So we can see that there are 2 null values. So we can see that there are 3 attributes that have null values, and we have to fill that null values with the average values of each features. And here we use the fill na function. We fill it with the average or mean of the feature. After that, after we fill the null values, we can check it again using this function. So the result of this function is false. So we can see that there are null values anymore because we already fill it. After that, we can see the data, the values of the data, like the amount of the values using histogram. So we can see here all the data on the histogram graphic. Like, for example, we can see the recipient body mass is how many recipient that have body mass 20 kilograms, how many recipients that have 40 kilograms, and so on. We can also see here the survival status, how many are survived, and how many are not survived. Then we can also use the plot scatter. From here, we can see the correlation between each features. Like, for example, here you can see the correlation between the donor age and the survival status. Here we can see that the donor with age more than 45 is there are mostly the recipients will not survive, and so on. We can see the correlation between survival status and the CD3D, CD34 survival status with recipient's body mass, like the recipient with the body mass more than 80 mostly will not survive, and so on. Maybe that's all I can explain. Thank you so much.